Every so often, the Earth just forgets to finish what it started. A volcano erupts, an ocean boils, or ice devours a continent. And in the chaos, something impossible happens. A creature dies and doesn't rot. Imagine wiping a thin layer of dust from a fossilized eye and seeing it still shine. Skin, muscle, and even the curve of its last breath frozen in place for hundreds of millions of years. It's not imagination, it's real. From volcanoes that flash-fried trilobites in mid-crawl, to tree sap that embalmed dinosaurs mid-flap, to permafrost that preserved mammoth blood still liquid after 39,000 years, nature has built its own time machines. When you look at these fossils, it feels like someone hit pause on the world. And the strangest part? These miracles of preservation all began with disasters. Because sometimes, the only reason we can see life so clearly is because the planet nearly destroyed it first. We think of fossils as bones, dull, brittle, incomplete. But every once in a while, the Earth does something spectacularly weird. Instead of turning life into dust, it locks it in time with microscopic precision. Not just skeletons, but skin. Not just shells, but hearts, muscles, even the colors of feathers. These aren't fossils. They're Earth's backup drives. Across 500 million years, nature has preserved life in ways that would put any cryogenics lab to shame. A volcanic eruption turned the seafloor into a 3D scanner. A drought in South Africa mummified skin older than dinosaurs. Amber froze a dinosaur mid-feather fluff. And Siberian ice captured mammoth blood so fresh it still glowed red. It's not magic. It's chemistry and chaos in perfect balance. Each of these events was an accident that rewrote how we understand extinction, evolution, and survival. And before we start digging into these forgotten worlds, make sure you're subscribed to Beyond Extinction, where the past refuses to stay buried and science tells stories stranger than any myth. Now, let's travel back to when continents were bare, oceans boiled with life, and one volcanic eruption gave us the most metal fossils in history. 521 million years ago, Morocco wasn't desert, it was ocean. A shallow, shimmering sea teeming with strange lifeforms that looked like armored pancakes with attitude. These were trilobites, early arthropods that scuttled across the seafloor like they owned the place. Then one day, the planet decided to flip the table. A nearby volcano erupted with unimaginable force, unleashing molten ash and gas into the water. The heat flash-boiled the sea, instantly cooking everything alive. And for most creatures, that was the end. But for a lucky, or unlucky, few trilobites, it was the beginning of eternity. As volcanic sludge poured over them, the ash didn't just bury, it embalmed. The mix of sulfur, iron, and heat created a perfect storm of preservation. Within hours, the trilobites' soft tissue began crystallizing into pyrite, fool's gold. Their digestive tracts, antennae, and even tiny bristles on their limbs turned metallic. When paleontologists cracked open the rock 500 million years later, they weren't looking at fossils. They were looking at sculptures made by an explosion. Each trilobite stood in perfect 3D, its body intact, as if it had died yesterday. One specimen even showed hot volcanic ash forced down its throat, sketching the entire shape of its esophagus. The first time scientists had ever seen the internal anatomy of a trilobite in such detail. To put that into perspective, out of more than 22,000 trilobite species, less than 1 in 10,000 fossils preserve soft tissue. These Moroccan specimens did it across an entire colony. So yes, it's tragic, gruesome, and absurdly cool. The same eruption that obliterated an ancient ecosystem also created one of the most stunning windows into the Cambrian world ever found. Sometimes, history is written not by survivors, but by those who got fossilized trying to run. Jump forward 70 million years. The trilobites are still here, because apparently extinction memos took their time back then. Only now, they've migrated to what would one day become upstate New York. But in the Ordovician seas of 450 million years ago, it wasn't skyscrapers and taxis. It was dark, cold water, thick with iron and almost no oxygen. A nightmare for breathing, but paradise for preservation. In these murky depths lived Triarthris eatoni, a small trilobite that unknowingly booked a one-way ticket to immortality. A sudden mudslide buried hundreds alive, smothering them in an iron-rich slush that would become known as Beecher's trilobite bed. What that sludge did next was science fiction before fiction existed. It replaced every cell of their bodies with iron pyrite. Yes, literal metal. When scientists first unearthed them, they gleamed gold under light. Fossils made of fool's gold, complete with legs, gills, and even eggs. Their fine hairs, their walking posture. Even the tiny antennae looked so crisp you half expected one to blink. It's called permineralization, when mineral-rich fluids fill every pore before decay can start. Think of it as nature's 3D printer running on panic. These trilobites became so well preserved that under microscopes, their gills still showed layered filaments capable of exchanging oxygen. You could trace where the muscles once attached to shell plates. The odds of that happening? About 1 in 100,000. But in Beecher's bed, it happened again and again. A mass die-off turned into a golden archive. Geologists now know the region was once near the South Pole, its freezing seas rich in sulfur. Ironically, the same toxic water that killed them became their armor and death. So yes, New York's always been tough. It just used to be underwater and full of trilobites wearing gold. Now let's skip ahead 200 million years to a time when the Earth almost gave up on life completely. Massive volcanic eruptions across Siberia poisoned the air, cooked the oceans, and wiped out 90% of all species. It was the planet's worst extinction event, and out of that ash walked one stubborn survivor, Lystrosaurus. Picture a hippo-sized creature with a turtle's beak, stubby legs, and the confidence of something that refuses to read the room. It wasn't pretty, but it was tough. For a time, Lystrosaurus made up 95% of all land vertebrates. Nothing before or since has dominated Earth like that. And somehow, in 2022, scientists in South Africa's Karoo Basin found one so perfectly preserved it looked like it just needed a sip of water. Its body had dried in the desert heat and become naturally mummified. Skin, muscles, and even collagen fibers fossilized in place. Under the microscope, its hide looked leathery, more like a rhino's than a reptile's. The cause? A brutal drought. The same heat that killed it also saved it. With no moisture, bacteria couldn't decompose the flesh. It's the prehistoric equivalent of being freeze-dried, just, roasted instead. But this find wasn't alone. Around it were 7 more Lystrosaurus bodies, including juveniles, preserved as a group. They likely died together, huddled in a dried-up burrow, waiting for rain that never came. Those bodies changed how we view this creature, not just as a survivor, but as social. Herd-living, family-centered, capable of cooperation, which, considering they lived right after a mass extinction, might have been the only reason they made it at all. It's poetic, really. The species that survived apocalypse after apocalypse was finally preserved by the same desert that once tried to erase it. Now, let's move to something with a bit more bite, literally. Fast forward to Jurassic England, Dorset, 150 million years ago. Today it's known for quiet coastal towns and gray skies. Back then, it was a tropical archipelago crawling with monsters. And one of them, the pliosaur, ruled it all. This wasn't your average marine reptile. It was a 33-foot-long torpedo of muscle with a 6-foot skull and teeth the size of kitchen knives. In 2022, paleontologists discovered one embedded halfway out of a cliff face, its head staring directly out toward the sea as if it had just surfaced for air. Only it hadn't done that for 150 million years. The skull was immaculate, the teeth still sharp enough to cut skin. Even the sensory pits on its snout, organs used to detect pressure waves in the water, were preserved. CT scans revealed the internal nerve canals that once helped it sense prey in the dark. Scientists measured its bite force at roughly 80,000 newtons, nearly double that of the largest saltwater crocodile. To put that in perspective, it could bite through a car door like it was chewing gum. How did it survive the ages so perfectly? A process called carbonate concretion. As the pliosaur's body sank into the seabed, minerals crystallized around it, forming a natural cement that sealed its skull before scavengers could touch it. For millions of years it waited there, hidden inside the rock, until erosion peeled back the layers and the monster looked out again. Standing beneath that cliff, you realize how small time makes us. You're staring at a creature that once ruled the oceans, and now it's fossilized mid-snarl, teeth bared, frozen in eternal hunger. The Jurassic coast still erodes every year. And who knows, The rest of that pliosaur's body might still be inside, waiting for the day it meets sunlight again. Before ice or gold or permafrost came into play, nature tried another trick. Tree sap. Sticky, slow, and annoyingly good at catching things that shouldn't be caught. Over millions of years, that resin hardened into amber, nature's glass. Inside it are creatures so perfectly preserved you can still count their hairs, see their last pose, even their color. It's like time shrink-wrapped them for delivery to the future. The most jaw-dropping example came from Myanmar, where miners unearthed a chunk of amber smaller than a golf ball. Inside it, a dinosaur's tail, bones, muscles, and feathers, frozen for 99 million years. Under a microscope, scientists could see each feather barb and pigment cell. The color pattern? Chestnut brown on top, pale underneath. Fashion was apparently a thing long before humans. At first, researchers thought it was a bird, but CT scans revealed something astonishing. Its tail vertebrae weren't fused like modern birds. This was a non-avian theropod, a cousin of Tyrannosaurus rex. In other words, a baby dinosaur that got stuck in tree goop. Tests found traces of ferric iron, remnants of blood cells, still locked inside. Not DNA, sadly, Jurassic Park lied to us again, but proof that iron helped preserve clay soft tissue before decay could start. And it wasn't alone. Other amber fossils have trapped moments so precise they feel alive. A spider attacking a wasp mid-strike. A 230-million-year-old salamander curled like it was still breathing. Even an ancient flea carrying plague bacteria, the oldest case of disease ever recorded. Each piece of amber is a perfect accident, the world's smallest time capsule, and maybe the cruelest, too. Every creature inside is frozen mid-motion, eyes open, muscles tensed, waiting for a future that finally arrived. Just 99 million years late. Fast forward to Siberia, where cold doesn't just bite, it embalms. In 2010, reindeer herders near the Yana River spotted something strange poking through the ice, a clump of reddish fur. They brushed away the frost and realized they were staring at the face of a baby woolly mammoth. She still had eyelashes. Nicknamed Yuka, she had been frozen for nearly 39,000 years, yet looked heartbreakingly fresh. Her fur was strawberry blonde, her skin soft and intact, and her trunk still curled like she'd taken one last breath before freezing forever. Scientists thawed her carefully, expecting decay. Instead, they found perfection. Her brain, yes, an intact mammoth brain, had only shrunk by about 55% since death. Her internal organs were whole, and when researchers cut into a leg artery, liquid blood flowed out. Under a microscope, its hemoglobin reactivated with oxygen. Let that sink in. After almost 40 millennia, her blood still worked. Permafrost had turned Yuka into the most complete mammoth ever found. Here's how. When she died, probably after falling into an icy pit, the surrounding mud instantly froze solid. The temperature never rose above 0 again. No bacteria, no decay. The ultimate deep freeze. Using radiocarbon dating, scientists placed her in the Upper Paleolithic period, around the time humans first painted caves in France. Isotope analysis from her tusks even traced her migration patterns. North in summers, south in winters, just like modern elephants. It's tragic and miraculous in equal measure. She was 6 years old, small, curious, and unlucky. But because of that, we now know what mammoths really looked like. Not the bones, but the being. Yuka wasn't just a fossil, she was a pause button pressed by the Ice Age itself. You'd think finding a mammoth with liquid blood was as weird as it gets. Then 2018 happened. Deep in Siberia's Beta crater, a mile-wide wound in the permafrost known as the gateway to the underworld. Scientists discovered another Ice Age miracle. It wasn't a giant, it was a foal. A tiny, perfect horse that had been frozen for 42,000 years. Its golden brown coat still gleamed. Its hooves were flawless. Inside, its stomach held traces of milk from its last meal. But the real shock came when researchers sliced into a vein and found liquid blood, again. Only this time, it wasn't red-brown sludge. It was fresh crimson. Under a microscope, the cells looked alive. Scientists cultured them and managed to coax a flicker of biological activity. Some nuclei responded to stimuli. tiny pulses of life reignited from Ice Age tissue. The foal belonged to Equus linensis, the Lena horse, an extinct species built for brutal winters where temperatures dropped below 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Its body was stocky, its legs muscular, its fur dense enough to survive blizzards that would kill us in minutes. That resilience outlasted its species. In this foal, life endured past extinction, cell by cell, molecule by molecule. The discovery ignited a modern obsession: de-extinction. If mammoth blood can still hold oxygen and a horse's cells can twitch back to life, what's next? Scientists at Colossal Biosciences are already editing elephant DNA with mammoth genes, trying to create hybrids that could one day walk the tundra again. It sounds like science fiction, and maybe it is, because while we can restart a cell, we can't resurrect its soul. Still, in that silent Siberian crater, surrounded by ancient ice, one thing became clear: sometimes death just forgets to follow through. Half a billion years before mammoths froze and dinosaurs got stuck in tree sap, there was another kind of preservation, one born not of ice or fire, but silence. High in the Canadian Rockies, deep within black slabs of shale, lies one of Earth's most haunting fossil sites, the Burgess Shale. Discovered in 1909, it captures a world from 505 million years ago, during the Cambrian explosion, when life on Earth went from simple blobs to creatures that could see, swim, and bite. At that time, these mountains weren't mountains at all. They were the floor of a shallow sea. Every so often, underwater landslides swept across it, burying entire ecosystems in fine mud so quickly that decay never stood a chance. With oxygen cut off, even soft-bodied creatures, jelly-like, delicate, and normally doomed to vanish, were sealed in place like ancient Polaroids. Today, scientists have found over 65,000 fossils here, representing more than 200 species, many unlike anything alive today. There's Anomalocaris, a shrimp-like monster the size of a human arm, with spinning jaws like a blender. Hallucigenia, a noodle on stilts with spines where logic says don't. Wiwaxia, a walking pine cone. Under modern microscopes, these fossils reveal unbelievable detail: muscle fibers, eyes, even brains. In one specimen, Stanley Caris, scientists traced optic nerves leading straight into preserved brain lobes, the oldest known nervous system on Earth. This site isn't just a museum, it's a memory bank. Every slab is a snapshot of life's first big experiment, captured mid-mutation. It's where nature tried out body plans like a sculptor testing clay, and the mud decided to save every draft. If amber preserves beauty and ice preserves tragedy, then the Burgess Shale preserves curiosity, the world's first chaotic spark of creativity made permanent. And if you listen closely, these fossils don't whisper about extinction. They whisper about invention. When you line them all up, the trilobites frozen by volcanoes, the leathery Lystrosaurus mummies, the amber dinosaurs, the permafrost mammoths, you realize something incredible. The planet has been running accidental cryogenics experiments for 500 million years. Each one followed the same formula. Chaos meets chemistry. Volcanoes sealed life in metal. Iron-rich muds fossilized flesh. Deserts mummified skin. Tree sap crystallized motion. Ice froze blood still beating. Scientists call them taphonomic miracles, the perfect blend of bad luck and good physics. And now we're learning to recreate them. In labs, researchers have mimicked Burgess-style fossilization by dunking fish tissue in anoxic clay baths and injecting iron sulfide. Within 48 hours, they produced fossils nearly identical to 500-million-year-old specimens. It turns out immortality isn't magic. It's chemistry under pressure. Every preserved fossil proves the same thing. The universe forgets quickly but never completely. When all else decays, structure remains. Carbon turns to stone, protein to crystal, blood to iron. It's death's way of leaving behind a signature, a whisper of what used to breathe. And that whisper might be the most powerful thing in nature, because it tells us that memory isn't a human invention, it's a property of matter itself. Stand in front of one of these fossils long enough and you start to feel a strange chill, not from the stone, but from the realization that you're looking at something that refused to vanish. Volcanoes erupted, oceans shifted, continents rose and fell. And yet, here they are. Eyes, skin, blood, still staring back from a time before trees, before mammals, before names. We call it preservation, but maybe it's the planet's version of compassion. Its way of saying, I'll remember you. One day we'll be the fossils, our bones, our buildings, our plastic and metal, pressed into some distant layer of tomorrow. Maybe someone or something will find us and say, they looked alive. And when that happens, what story will we leave behind? If these tales of volcanoes, amber, and ice made you see life and death a little differently, subscribe to Beyond Extinction, because the Earth never stops remembering, and neither should we.